All right, I want to jump into this video real quickly. This video is kind of optional. The whole premise of these two videos was more about the looping and the iteration, but I think some people want to see how this wraps up. As we look at the problem, right, we've already solved the vast majority of the problem in the first video by running through those two loops, the indefinite loop and the definite loop. Here's where people get really caught up in the fear of this problem and this problem so overwhelming. We did a great deal of it, right, through those loops. And if we think about it, we've gathered all that information. Now, all we need to do is use the information that we gathered in the first part of the program, in the first looping of the program here. So let's break this down a little bit. Basically, they're saying that when they created these piles of Smarties, that's what we did in the first program. We created this pile of Smarties. And this individual basically eats 7 Smarties at a time. Well, think about that. Let's say I have, I'll have 24 blue Smarties. How many handfuls is that? Well, they tell you the maximum handful is 7 Smarties. So 24 would be, let's see, that would be 3 handfuls of 7 plus 1 handful of 3, right? 3. So 4 handfuls. We know from earlier chapters we can do floor division and modular logic. So all we need to find is the what do you call it? The dividend and the remainder. That's all we need to do. Then, and again, it can be a lot simpler once you really start thinking about it. If I have a pile of 24 blue Smarties, how many handfuls is that? Well, there are 3 handfuls of 7 Smarties and 1 handful of 3 Smarties. So a total of 4 handfuls. And they say down here that each handful takes 13 seconds. All right. We can figure that one out. And then when we get to the red Smarties, they say each individual red Smartie takes 16 seconds. They must really enjoy those red Smarties. We've all done that. We've done these as kids and stuff like that. We kind of divvied up portions. So even though the logic looks very complicated, we have most of the heavy lifting is done, just kind of sorting the Smarties. So now it's time to program how long it takes to eat these Smarties. All right, let's take a look at my screen here. Let's try to make this video a little bit quicker. And again, it's more of an optional video. This is more, these past 2 videos were more about loops and definite loops and indefinite loops and things like that. But you know what? We saw the problem. How do we fix the rest of that problem? How do we complete that task? Well, this is a great example of the program having to do really 2 things. One, it had to first, what we've all done our entire lives, sort the candy. And then the second one is when we start counting the candy or doing some kind of logic associated to the candy. So if I look here at my code, I'm not going to change this. I'm not going to start with a blank screen or anything like that. But I need another value, right? I need to keep a total of total time, right? So I'm going to go up here and actually I'm going to go here and I'm going to say int total time, assign it a 0. And I'm even going to do it here because what I am looking for, or what the problem is looking for, is total time to eat an entire box. Not all 10 boxes, but each individual box. So every time I iterate through this for loop, I'm going to reset all my counters, and that's what I'm doing here. I set the counters up here, wipe them out with zeros, but here, down here from the previous video, you saw that I'm just basically, every new box, I'm starting from scratch. Do I have to worry about the while loop? Nope. That's doing the heavy lifting for me. Now I'm going to get rid of this line, this little line here. It'll make more sense in a second. Where do I do all those calculations based upon time? after the while loop. The while loop and the for loop and the while loop did the heavy lifting. They basically came out with the candies and organized them. Now we have data. And again, this program is a great example of one part of the program is doing something, and then the other part of the program is using that something. So, after we're done printing this stuff, it might be nice to say, okay, here's where we're going to calculate the total time. We have our piles of Smarties. That's critical. After the while loop, we have our pile, because the while loop is organizing the box. Here's where we can do our logic. And we're just going to say total time is going to equal to total time plus an orange Smarties integer division 7. I'll explain this in a second. Can't talk and do two things at the same time. Where are we? Here we go. Missing some things. All right. What is this saying right here? It's saying that, let's say I have a pile of 24 orange Smarties. I'm first going to do integer division, basically get the dividend. So 24 divided by 7 is going to give us 3. It's going to give us 3 handfuls of 7. But what about the other 4? Well, we'll get there in a second. 3 handfuls of 7, each handful is going to take 13 seconds, right? That's good. But then we got to determine if there's any remainder. Again, I'm using 24 for a reason. 3 handfuls of 7, it leaves us 3 Smarties left over. Every handful, regardless of the size, does take 13 seconds. So here, what I can do is say if orange Smarties, and we're going to do our medulla division. That's going to determine if there is anything left over. If it's a 0, it's meaningless. It's not. We don't have to have a handful of 0. And if that is greater than 0, then do something. What do we want to do? We basically want to say total time is now equal to total time plus 13. Now you say, what do you mean plus 13? You're just looking at the remainder. If you have a remainder of 3 Smarties, then just add an additional 13 seconds to those, to your time. If you don't, let's say you have 21 Smarties. Well, then you had no remainders. You're not going to fall through that if logic. Again, to save time here, I'm going to do a big giant cut and paste. I don't have to go through and retype every single color here, with the exception of red. When we get to red, I'll explain what's going on with red in a second. All right, got to line some things up. They're off a little bit, and that's going to drive me crazy. Just making sure they're lining up. All right. And can move this over. Okay, so we're doing the exact same arithmetic to this. We're finding the dividend, we're finding the remainder, we're multiplying the dividend by 13 because that's the number of handfuls. Anything remainder, that's an additional 13. But what about the red, right? The red is a little bit of a kind of a special condition. The red just basically said for each individual red Smartie, I love this problem. For each individual red Smartie, it's going to take 16 seconds per Smartie. That's easy enough. So we've done all these calculations. We say total time is now going to equal total, spell it right, Nick, time plus red Smarties star 16. So we're going to take whatever total time we have up here, and we're just going to add to it the number of red Smarties times 16. Let's put a print statement here. We're going to say print, we're going to say system out print line. We're going to say, quote, total time to eat is, and then here we're going to say total time. Gonna have a problem with this if I don't fix it. Total time. All right. So this is going to, you know what? I'm going to put one more thing here. This is going to look at each individual box. Just kind of make it a little bit nicer to look at. So this is going to run through this code, and it's going to first sort all those Smarties. That's the first half of the code. And then the second half of the code is basically, take handfuls of Smarties and figure out how many seconds are involved with the handfuls of Smarties. All right. Sorry for that break. My braces didn't line up. Things weren't compiling. I've just spent the last kind of 20 minutes cleaning things up, and I figured you didn't want to see that. So anyways, I've cleaned up the code, and now it's time for me to compile the code. So I'm going to say Java C main Java. All right, now I could run it with that redirection. If I go back to the 10 boxes, I'm going to do it with the 10 boxes. So I can say Java main Java, redirect the input from 10 boxes.txt, and we run it. And it went through those boxes, and now we have the total time per boxes. All right. So I hope you enjoyed these videos, but basically that is kind of the logic. The logic was fairly intense there, but again, by breaking it down into small manageable parts, we should be in good shape. Let's wrap this up. All right, wrap of the videos, the two videos here. These two videos were more about loops and some of the problems out there that you can solve on your own and things like that. It was a little enjoyable, thinking about Smarties and candies and things like that. So with everything being done, everything being said, 2 very long videos are done. Thanks, and let's go out and learn something.